A relative that went over and took her daughter over there, and she went to school. And the town is called Old Somerby, Lincolnshire, England. And his dad was a postman, and he lived in the post office, and that's the post office.
So this would, tell me again the relationship? This was your...
This is my dad's dad,
Okay.
Charles Eldridge. And he doesn't have a middle name. The Owen girls have middle names. Mm-hmm. And, but Eli and Henry, they don't have, but that's where they lived. Now these pictures go back to 1953. And one of my younger cousins, my age, went back a few years ago, and that building's about down, but it's still standing.
Still there, huh?
That's where they got their water. Everybody had to go to the well in the town. And the church that he went to was called St. Magdalene, and all his relatives are buried in this cemetery and that. My grandpa Eldridge came from England when he was 19. And these are pictures of he didn't farm over there, but that's what he wanted to do when he came here. That who has the farm? Northrup, where Jane and Chuck live now. That was a Northrup farm, and Charles died and left her with all this land. Every so often there's Northrup, and stuff. This is my grandpa Eldridge's dad. And he was a postman. He walked about 25 miles a day. And my grandpa would go with him and ring a bell, and the people would come out and get the mail. And he had a gout. I think this is where the family diabetes comes from.
So he was a postman in England or here?
No,
Or both?
in England.
In England, okay. I should probably write on the back of that one. Put a sticky.
Now, will that scan?
Yeah.
I have several pictures that are duplicates.
Okay.
And so if you see something that doesn't scan, maybe I have another one. That would be better.
We got the stickies for that one. Postman, and what was his name?
His name was Thomas. Tom Eldridge was named after him.
Oh, okay. And that was in England.
Lincolnshire, Lincoln. Old Somerby, Lincolnshire, England. Now, Grandpa worked at the Victoria Station, the big one down there, or up there, over there, whatever.
In London?
And he got a good report. He signed a certificate to say that he'd be a good citizen and a good Christian and everything. And his mother died having twin number 11 and 12 child. She was like 36 years old. He was an animal. And so his mother's sister was at Shellsburg, Iowa, taking care of an aunt and uncle that had no children. And they brought her over from England. She had a boyfriend. She planned to get married, but it just didn't work out. So her aunt and uncle had farmland, and so they had money, and she brought her own mother and her 6 brothers and sisters over, and then all the Eldridge children except 2. And that's how we got over here. And the first thing that she would do is, that's an English suit that he's got on. They'd invent and they'd go over and take their picture in that. So he went from that.
Okay, and we need the name on that one?
That's Charles Eldridge.
Charles Eldridge.
he went from that looking to that looking. And then this was in his trunk. He brought his baby picture.
Oh, that's his baby picture? In the little dress.
Now this is
Same person.
this is a little darker. So
Yeah, we'll see which one scans the
Yeah.
best. So those are the duplicate.
this one's kind of fuzzy. Okay, here's another award that he got working for the railroad, and that's his aim to, when he got over here, was to farm and have a family, and if they had a lot of kids, have an orchestra so that they could entertain. I guess he
family
studied the violin when he was young or something like that. He had a threshing machine that Joe Bartholomew ran. And
So who is in the picture? Do you know?
Joe Bartholomew.
That's Joe?
Mhm. What's his real name?
I have it in the records.
Yeah,
have
I
to
can't
look it up.
think of it either, but. And my dad and Joe got along, well, of course, with the sheller, he was always breaking something or, doing something, and I'd go along, and if they were, I couldn't look at the welding or anything like that, but they were just good friends. Joe's first wife was a Moulds, and my grandpa's mother was a Moulds. So
they were
there's a
kind of
relation,
cousins.
yeah, by marriage, And then when his wife had the first girl, she was okay. And then when she had the second girl, that's the one that lived at the county home. And that first girl was given to my grandma Eldridge's sister, Cora, and John Moulds, who would be a first cousin to the bunch. And the first place that he went when he got here was Shellsburg. And then where Claire Klubane lives now, that was Samuel Moulds' farm. And Linda Moulds, that was in my class, her dad, that's where he was born. So there's a connection on both sides I have. And I was going to bring the Moulds deal to put in the library, all names and addresses and stuff, but I forget it wasn't Joe told me this, but he said you could always depend on Claude, but Elmer, you never knew if he was going to go get the water or not. Grandpa comes from England, and he's a board of supervisor.
For Blackhawk County.
And at that time, his district was Bennington, Leicester, and Mount Vernon. He had like 6 or 7 townships under that. He knew a guy in Shellsburg who was Elsie Smith's uncle that put in telephones down at Shellsburg. So they brought him up here, and Grandpa was on the board and president until he died.
1 share of Dunkerton Mutual Telephone Company, 1915.
I was going to see if that was
neat.
worth $25, but it's still the mutual telephone deal. But this is what came from the people that owned the farm where my folks lived. They just transferred the phone. Here's a recipe. I don't know if that's something you'd be interested in or not. That's my folks. Mom's got on bib overalls. I think she's pregnant with Bob. And then the tall guy is a nephew. He's an Ackerman. His dad was Ole Ackerman, And then there was Walt Ackerman, lots of Ackermans. But did you ever make that
So
stuff?
your mother and father are in the middle of this picture?
Yeah,
Right?
they're
The couple in the center?
in the center. And then this is my grandma, Bertha.
Okay,
And then this is Paul,
okay.
tall Paul.
Tall Paul.
When I saw a picture of the grandfather, how big he was and everything, I said, we don't look anything like him. I don't know where the connection was. But this is a sale in January, but they're north of St. Francis. That would be where Leonard Miller lived. My grandpa and grandma built that house. They moved there from the Northrup farm.
So this is a mile north of Dunkerton and 1.5 miles east of Mount Hope.
Mm-hmm. Oops. And this is something David did. Every time I got something like that from how do you do that, David? Oh, you just kind of have to set this. And he got tired of trying to explain it to me. That's my grandma Bertha,
Okay,
Owen Eldridge.
okay.
And that's a picture. I think that it was taken before he got sick. He died in 44. He died before I was born.
Bertha Owen Eldridge, and your dad's name was?
Claude Eldridge.
Claude
Claude Arthur.
Okay. After
My grandpa Eldridge died, Grandma wrote that. That tells how he watched the fox and guys chasing the fox over there.
over in England?
He skipped school and
the fox hunting?
yeah. I just wanted to hear him say something. He didn't call his hat a hat, he called it something else, and his glasses was something else. And when the folks got married, Daddy was doing the farming, and so they lived with them until he got some money to live where Dean Whitney. They wanted George and Dean to go to Dunkerton to school. And if they stayed where they lived, they'd have to go to Waterloo. So there was a little hut across the road that was in the right school district. So the folks got a nice house and they lived in the...
Huh.
I got several pictures of her just in case. That's about him running for supervisor. That's a nice picture.
Yeah.
I did learn to colorize, and I kind of like it. It's kind of weird, but
That's a good, that one might scan really well.
okay, this picture. This is the house that they left the Northrup farm to. That's really an old picture. And that's her brood. There was 9 kids. Daddy's number 7. This is my Uncle Clarence Eli Eldridge. And the photographer came and Grandma says, go get the gun. Because she was alone with all these kids and everything. Okay. This is my Aunt Marie. She's the oldest girl.
Those written on the back.
No.
Okay. So the first one was Clarence.
I have a genealogy sheet of all the kids and everything, so I'll give that to you.
Okay. But we'd like to know who they are in the picture too.
Yeah.
So the first one was Clarence
Yeah, this was Clarence Eli.
Eldridge. And then,
That's Bertha.
okay,
And then that's my Aunt Marie
Marie.
Eldridge himself. And her name really is Mary Marie. And Mom wanted to name Mary Marie, but she didn't want to do it because of Aunt Marie, so she named her Mary.
But they called her Marie.
Really Mary.
But they called her Marie.
They called ever since she was little, I guess. Okay. And then the next one is my Aunt Bess.
That's on the far end.
Bess Eldridge Kerman, Kirman.
Okay.
And she was the first one that moved to Illinois, to Kewanee, Illinois. So that was our vacation. Go over there. Okay, this one is Aunt Mabel.
Aunt Mabel has a hat
Yeah.
in the front.
Mabel Grace Eldridge Ackerman. And then this one is my Bertha. I don't know her middle name. Bertha Hendrickson, Hendricksen.
That's a little one on the dark.
Then the little guy sitting on the chair is my Uncle Elmer.
Okay.
And she's pregnant with my dad. He didn't get in the picture.
Well, I did.
Yeah, kind of. And the Dunkerton Methodist Parsonage. My Grandpa Eldridge is a charter member of the Methodist Church. He came from England, and he was baptized in the creek by the Baptists. And so then he comes up here, and they want to build a Methodist church. And so he helped build it and became a charter member there. And Betty was a Catholic over in England, Church of England over there.
So you started to say about the parsonage?
The parsonage, yeah, the parsonage was built, and he helped build that. And then he built the same house, identical inside and outside, on the Leonard Miller place where they lived. And it was for sale when we was on the acreage out across from Don and Larry. And Amanda was just a baby, and so Mom stayed with her at the house, and Bob and my dad and I went over, and Harold. And Mills and Steve.
Polly and
Yeah.
Mills.
The Mills girl was,
Ash.
or no, it was Steve Mills. Steve Mills, yeah.
Steve and Polly, yeah, his mom.
Yeah, and they were gonna, no, it was the Averhoof kid that married, that runs the camp, or ran the camp, the Girl Scout camp.
Deanne's brother is.
I can't remember, it was up by Decorah or
Yes.
something like that. Well, anyway, they were moving out of the house. And so before it got put up for sale or anything, why, Bob told him that, it belonged to the grandparents and everything. Oh, Colin, oak here, and 3 steps this way, and then landing and up stairs. The attic, you could stand up and walk around. I said, oh, that would be a wonderful playhouse area and all the toys and everything. My dad says, what do you want with a dump like this? And I said, Daddy, look what we're living at.
Jean.
Gene Averhoff.
Jean Averhoff? Yeah.
So it needed new wiring and stuff like that. And Harold really wasn't too excited about it either. So when the tornado comes, it just lifts it up and smashes it. We were in that area, and I went by, and I just wanted a piece of that beautiful oak. There wasn't any. It was just shreds. So this is a gathering, and that's how many grandchildren he had just before he died. And I'm grandchildren number 41, and there was 3 more.
So where are you in there?
I'm not in there.
Oh, you're not in there. Okay.
He died in 44. And I was born in 45.
Oh, okay. So I've got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I had forgotten that you lived across from Don and Larry.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember anything about an American Legion auxiliary sign that was up in the barn?
I never went to the barn.
Okay. Well, we have it.
Oh, good.
It's downstairs. We'll show it to you.
Who brought that?
Jeff Siemens. They lived there for a while.
Yeah.
And he saved it out of the barn before they tore it down.
I looked in there through
in
the
fact-
door,
Really?
and that
Well,
Yeah.
we'll show you this big sign.
Yeah.
a big sign, huh?
It's big.
Yes.
It's, I don't know,
It's
12
big.
feet long.
We lived in the duplex. Simisters lived on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And Lauren Darling built that duplex. And we were the first renters on the right side. And Don and Janet Hopley was on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was kind of bad. They wasn't too happy. They didn't have a baby there, but it was coming. And so we wanted to get out of the duplex, and Harold had a truck. He used to park it in front of the schoolhouse and stuff. And Clinton Sage owned the farm. And of course, we know Clinton from Mount Hope and everything. And so he agreed to sell 3 acres. And so that's what we bought. Well, I never went in the barn, and I never went in the back porch either. Mice?
Oh,
Oh. Marlis and Harlan Sage lived there for a little while. And Becky had us over for a slumber party. And at that time, they had the whole house working. So we slept upstairs and everything. But when we went to bed, we stayed in the little tiny room that they used just off the dining room. You could hear the mice falling down, and then if they fell, they go, I'd go, oh, Harold. And of course, he'd pull me closer, and then, well, we're recording this. Oh my gosh.
that's okay.
Anyway, we dropped the register in the dining room and just loaded it with decon. And it was bad living, but we finally got rid of the mice. We couldn't have cats because they just died. They had
So
something.
close to the road.
Yeah. Well, that or a disease or something that they just didn't live. And so then we stripped the living room, and the insulation was some corn cobs. Of course, it didn't have any corn on it because the mice had eaten it all.
Yeah.
You wonder why you had mice.
And the front and back of a Waverly German newspaper. And I took that and I made a 3D collage for it. Long time ago. That went someplace in a garage sale or something. But it was fun living there, being out in the country again and everything. And then his trucking got so that he was into semis and trailers and stuff, and they wanted so much for permits. We got a book like that a big deal protesting us, What we did, hauled bean meal away. That's where I wasn't working full time, and I'd take phone calls and messages and stuff. But we never built that house, but there's one there now. So it looks very nice. That's my grandma's funeral. Look at the flowers. She was in the Legion. She was real good friends with Myrtle McGee. That would be Wayne McGee's grandma. And she always said a kind word about my grandma. And she was a good Methodist.
So maybe that's where the American Legion tie is. This American Legion auxiliary would be the women.
Well,
Maybe that's why the sign?
No,
No?
that was on one of those maps here. It was called the Fertile Valley Farm, and it was a pulp farm, and related like to McGee, Velma McGee. And that could be where it came from.
Okay.
What funeral home? Do you have any?
Or is it
No, on Franklin. It is no more. They tore it down.
Okay. I
Yeah.
just didn't recognize it.
Yeah, I would say it could have been a home, too.
It was,
'cause they
yeah.
did that in the home.
It was a really nice, pretty
47.
home. Yeah. She was a little lady. Okay. Oh, here's where he had charge of Leicester, Dunkerton, Mount Vernon, Washington, and Union. And then there's an article that he had turned in bills for the biggest supervisor bill. Well, he had a lot of country to cover, and stuff. And here's that recipe for that thing.
Rhubarb marmalade.
And that little guy looking in the deal is my dad. That's Claude Arthur Eldridge. That was their first car. They're like the Waltons. nine kids, I can't imagine what the meals were like. Okay, back to England. When Grandpa Eldridge's mother died, my grandpa was 12, and his sister was 10, and his brother John, who ended up going to Cornell College, Aunt Sarah sent him to college, and he's a minister, ended up out in Colorado. And they just kept going 8, 6, 4, 2, So he marries this lady, and her name is Sarah Padgett, Padgett. She looks scared to death of him.
She does.
Like, what am I
There's a lot
getting
of-
myself into? But I have letters that Mary Ann, the sister that was 10, wrote to her brother, and she calls her mother and has really good things to say about her, because she became a mother right away.
So was this still in England?
Yes, that is Thomas Eldridge and his wife, Sarah Padgett.
Sarah.
Now there's a good picture. That's my grandpa and grandma's wedding picture.
That's great.
And they got married in 1895, February 27th. I typed it a lot, getting it right.
Okay, so this is, tell me the names again.
Okay, that is Charles Eldridge and Bertha May, M-A-Y, Owen Eldridge.
And wedding, February 27th?
1895.
1895.
Now there's a copy of a copy. I don't know if you need that. That's a little different color than what's in that one.
We'll see which one scans better.
Yeah.
And this is Grandpa Eldridge's mother. Her name was Mary Ann Moulds Eldridge. She could have been pregnant in that picture too.
Could be. Mary Ann Moulds.
Now here's a glossy.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so we've got several to choose from here.
Yeah.
See which one scans the best. That one might be the best one.
And then here's another picture of the grandpa that's a little bit better than the other one too.
Okay.
When he came over from England, he had a trunk. And in this trunk was a picture of his mother. And I'll show you later what mine was. Somebody else had this one. And you take from everybody's tree, you know, and put it on your own and stuff. But I thought she was kind of pretty. And she doesn't look stressed. Oh, there's another supervisor thing for Charles. Okay. But Charles was involved in school. He was on the board of supervisors, or not supervisors, but on the board for schools, and he just did all kinds of stuff. And so he was no dummy either.
Do we want to take a break and switch to the Bennington School?
Yeah. Is
You
that
mind?
coffee still going downstairs?
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
it right out here. Let me
Okay.
get you a cup.
Let's take a short break.
No, I don't drink coffee.
Oh, okay, there's